Hello, friends. So happy to have you here with us today at Radical Joy. If you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time with us, well, we're glad you're here. Each Wednesday, we're here with you talking about things that weigh on our minds and hearts, hoping if you're dealing with something similar, we can adjust our perspectives as you listen. The more people we meet and the more places we go, the more we realize how important it is to make people aware of the fact that there is no shame in enjoying the parts of your life that are incredible. It's time for some radical joy, and this week, the three fingers pointing back at me are for friends made family. MaKenzie Fly is a guiding force in the world of yoga, known for embodying the practice and leading by example. Based in Las Vegas, Nevada, she serves as the lead educator for yoga teacher training at Lifetime Green Valley, empowering aspiring yoga teachers to turn their passion into a paycheck. A lover of travel, she is also the co-creator of Rechaka Retreats, a wellness company that designs dream getaways to exotic locations. MaKenzie is the host, the Master Your Yoga Teaching podcast, where she serves up real talk, inspiration, and practical wisdom that helps yoga teachers increase their impact and income. Now, off the yoga mat, she's a new mom, animal lover, Sagittarius straight shooter, and bookworm. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to you, MaKenzie Fly. Great to see you, darling.
Oh, thank you, James. I am so happy to be here.
Absolutely. Oh my God. Whenever you were telling us that you were looking to get into podcasting as well, I was so excited. I was like, fantastic. Please come be on an episode. Show these people this wonderful life that you have, because it's so important that it never ceases to amaze me, the people I have in my life that have so much to offer. And the fact that you're here with us right now is great, because I don't even know where to start. MaKenzie and I first knew each other from performing, and also from that guy.
That guy,
you
that
know,
one guy.
that one guy. Yeah. MaKenzie's husband and I, we perform in a band that goes all over the world, touring with some of the great classic hits of rock and roll. And MaKenzie also involved in some of that performance as well with the Yesterday Once More tribute.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is starting to sort of shift and change as moving forward, because MaKenzie is getting more into perhaps yoga teaching, yoga teacher teaching, as well as the retreats and motherhood. There's so much on your plate. Where do we even begin? I'm going to let just go, Mama. Tell us all about the fun.
Yeah, well, seriously, it is difficult to find a place to start. And I think even more difficult, sometimes it's hard to be on your same level of joy, James, your same level of light. So I will do my best to provide. I'm just so happy to be here with you and your audience. And if anything, that one guy, Colin, my husband, did do
Mhm.
something right in connecting us.
Ah,
I'm just teasing. I'm the biggest fan of him. I love my husband so much. And the people, particularly that he surrounds himself with, you included, I think, speaks volumes. But gosh, I really don't know where to begin. I mean, performance has always been a huge part of my life. It's what I went to school for. So went to college for musical theater, got my BFA in musical theater and dance. And
mhm.
then right after college, started performing professionally. Did a couple of regional theaters. And then pretty quickly after that, went to cruise ships, which is where I met Colin and also James. So we,
Yes.
we go way back. I was thinking, James, the other day about, gosh, it must have been almost 10 years ago when we were hanging out at some little coffee shop in the Norwegian Star, like cafe
Right?
area. And we were
Yes.
sitting across a table with each other and just getting to know one another. And you were sharing some of your practices that you do to maintain your joy. You were telling me kind of about your morning pages, which is a practice that I'm still familiar with. I'm sure you still do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Got to
every
do that.
morning.
Every
Hmm.
day.
Yeah.
If I don't, it's because I had to replace it with something else. That's the only reason. Like, I ran out of time, but it's reading or reflection or something like that for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank
So
you.
many rituals that you can do to keep that. But that always stuck out to me. And I remembered that about you and I appreciated that about you. Um, yeah. And I like to surround myself with people who take time to intentionally do practices like that. So we go way back in that sense. But performance then carried me to Las Vegas, which was never on my radar. Never
Right.
imagined myself living in Las Vegas. And I like to joke that Las Vegas is kind of like a cruise ship, but on land. So it
Yeah.
was somewhat of a really seamless transition to be sailing the seas, traveling a lot, and then move to Las Vegas. Still for shows, I was performing on the Las Vegas Strip in various shows for about 5 years before shutdown.
Mhm.
And then all the while, I've always taught yoga alongside performance. And to me, they seemed very similar in the sense that you're still trying to create an experience
Yes.
as a performer and as a yoga teacher. There's still elements of setting the stage, creating a certain type of atmosphere,
Yes.
guiding people through some sort of storytelling to evoke and emote a certain emotion. So they always felt very similar, just kind of parallel roads. But
Mhm.
then when shutdown happened, I did kind of stop performing after that and really focused on yoga teaching and developing that to be beyond just teaching in the yoga studio. So, like you mentioned, becoming more of a teacher of teachers and coaching other aspiring yoga teachers or teachers who have been in the game for a while but just want to have some reimagination, reinvention. And then also the yoga retreats is kind of my newest endeavor, which is really fun and brings me back to the sense of adventure and travel that being on a cruise ship brought to me. So
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like it's veering and winding, but all the best stories do, right? Hopefully.
Agree. Oh my God. And there's always a way to connect it back to something that you've already done or something you've experienced.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I love. It's that connecting, not only with the past experiences, but how to enrich those in where we are right here, right now, and with
Yeah.
whom we surround ourselves at this point. You know, like 10 years ago, I was with a certain group of people, and looking around today, the group is different, but the feeling is similar.
Mm.
You know, there's a passion there, there's a love for the things that we do, and that is so evident in what you do. I love following your social media, by the way.
Oh,
It's always so genuine. Everything you do is so very authentic in what you do. You know, we laugh at ourselves whenever things get a little crazy or sideways or wonky. We also take things very seriously whenever it's come time to center and to make sure that, you know, whenever we're feeling anxious or erratic, that we can bring ourselves back to the center and sort of smooth that energy into more of a rounded shape instead of one with edges.
mm,
And the way that you continue to change your color and your channel in that is so soothing, and it's also so inviting because it's so very relatable. Like on a Monday, I could be the coolest cat you've seen. I've had 2 days a weekend. Life's rock and roll. Let's crush it. Come Wednesday, I'm like, Jesus God, if you don't get me to Friday, there's no way I'm going to make it.
Lord help me. I know.
Okay. Oh my God. And
Yeah.
so that's what I love about watching your life unfold and what you put out on social media and things like that, because we absolutely ebb and flow with you. And
Mm,
whenever our energies are matched, we're like, good, okay, cool, it's not just me. And whenever they're in literally diametric opposition, you're like, well, today this is what we're going through. And maybe you could join us because if you're having a little bit of a trouble, let's try to bring that down. Let's try to bring it in the middle. And then you bring in all these things that are so for just like normal, real life dogs, kids, pets, bills. As, yeah, all the things. You give
thank
us these
you.
wonderful things of ideas and also these tangibles that make it all come together so beautifully that it makes all the sense in the world that you would be a teacher, of course, as well as an instructor, a mentor, and all these wonderful things.
Oh, I really, really appreciate that. I think with
Yeah.
anything that we do, we're all, as much as we don't like to admit it, I think we are all seeking a little bit of external validation. And
Yes.
we struggle with that intrinsic worth. I think that it's always nice to hear some of that because you put your heart and your soul into things, and especially when you put it out on the internet, sometimes you're like, clicks, post, dot dot dot.
Right.
And then it's like waiting for that validation to kind of come in.
Right.
So I hear that and I receive that. I really do appreciate it because I do try to create some things that are not only inspirational and uplifting, but also, like you said, very real. However, I mean, disclaimer, it comes a little bit from not necessarily like selfish point of view, but it helps me also process some things when I just like say it out loud or ask other people like how they're dealing with certain things.
Oh gosh, yeah. I,
And I think that I didn't mean to cut you off there,
no,
but
not at all. Please.
I think maybe some. I don't know, some people, like in one example, in the year 2022, and not to go like too deep or too sad too fast, but my husband and I, we actually suffered a miscarriage. And I remember feeling like there was no other option other than to talk about it online. And that was very normal for me, because I was just like, I need to relate to other people on this topic. I need other people to tell me that they felt the same, or to flood my inbox with their experience so that I can get through this, because it felt very lonely, very isolating. But I know other people might have had a very different innate sense of how to kind of process and transmute that. So that's what I mean when I say selfishly, like, I'm not trying to inspire anybody. I'm just trying to make it through the day sometimes.
I feel
um,
that.
yeah.
And I say that on here all the time too. Is like, hey, if y'all are getting something out of this, that's wonderful. I'm
Mhm.
thrilled. We can all have that journey together. If you're not, please understand this is literally my oral journal. This helps me. Just being able to like sit here and just speak to someone on a topic that's important to me, or something that I just want to just kind of explore a little bit deeper. Okay,
Yeah.
great. If you get something out of it, and I hope you do, amazing. If you don't, thank you for tuning in. If it's not your flavor and you scrolled away or whatever, also fine, because I still got 30 minutes of my self therapy.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly. And
okay,
that's
great.
the interesting thing about self-care is, in one perspective you can look at it as this selfish thing, but it's really not. Like, when you take care of yourself, somebody else doesn't have to.
Yes.
So it's the most unselfish thing that you could do, is to manage your own energy, is to deal with your own, like, emotions. And there's
Mhm.
many kind of modalities and methods that you can use to arrive at that destination. It's just important that you have something that helps you. And so social media can be that outlet. And I'm glad. I hope that what I'm putting out there is positive and funny and realistic. The other day, sorry, I'm like dropping all of my things. First really sad, and then here really embarrassing. But
Excellent.
the other day, I literally posted on my Instagram a postpartum problem. Did you see this?
Oh, yes.
Oh yeah.
Please continue, please.
Is this like allowed on your channel? Will your
It sure
people?
as hell is. I can't wait.
So this thing happens, you guys. This thing happens in a woman's body after she has pushed something the size of a watermelon out the size of a lemon, where she loses control of some muscles that she used to have tone in. So let's just call it, to put it very politely, air is passing through, and it's not necessarily a toot, but it's the same idea.
Mhm.
Air is passing through for a woman. It's called a queef, and I'm having queef problems since giving birth. And so I posted about this on my Instagram. I was like, listen, let's call this a situation, because I don't think it's a problem just yet, but it's a situation. This is happening. Does anyone have any tips of like how to kind of maneuver through this new uncharted territory of the postpartum body? And Colin, my husband, I get home and he's like, "Did you seriously post that on Instagram?" I was like, "Sure did.
Absolutely. Sure did.
Sure did." And so
Yes.
many women came into my inbox and was just like, "Oh man, the same thing happened to me. Don't worry, it gets better." And other people are laughing. Men are like, "I got this for my wife," telling me what they got. So, if anything, I hope people got a good laugh out of it. And I want to talk about sometimes those taboo topics that
Yes.
seem like, why aren't people talking about this? Like, are we trying to be polite, or what is it about it that seems so hush hush? I find myself more often than not wanting to discuss those things, because I find that just beyond that discomfort, just beyond that vulnerability, is that real sense of deep connection and like love and belonging that we all really are craving and wanting.
Yes. Oh, nailed it. Because whenever I said that, whenever I was talking about your authenticity and your relatability and things like that, I was so hoping that you were going to tell this exact story. I really was. I would never lead you to that and like ask you about it, because that's not my job. I would absolutely open that door should you choose to walk in, like she's walking toward the door. It was amazing.
Well, you're welcome. I will not, however, demonstrate it here and now for you. That
Totally
is where
fine.
I'll lay the boundary.
Your boundaries are absolutely respected here. I love it. No, it's just I love that. The fact that you and you kicked the door down, and I'm absolutely 100% here for it, because These things that you just mentioned about this taboo, this idea that some things are just off the table that we can't talk about, people don't realize how much we need to speak about exactly those things. Because
Mm-hmm.
those are things who put us, they put us on the outside. They make us feel alone. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
the only person who's ever had to deal with something like this. And you were brave enough, strong enough, and by golly, just bold enough to say, hey, anybody else having a problem with this verb? Because I am, and I don't love it.
Yep. You know what?
And
You said two really important things there, that
yeah,
the the biggest lie that we all tell ourselves, and this is something that my teacher really ingrained in me, and that why yoga has had a really huge impact on my life, not just as something that I do on a yoga mat, but a way that I live my life. The biggest lie that we all believe is that we're alone. And the mind, if left unchecked, if it doesn't have some sort of practice to help it not fall into its traps, to not fall into its pitfalls or go back on its defaults, if left unchecked, it's going to keep us feeling alone, and it's going to inflict self-harm. So that's kind of like the first thing. And then what else did you say? There was a second part. Oh no. Oh, I can feel it slipping away.
it's okay.
Oh, I don't know. It was there, and now it's like it's alone versus lonely. No, something. Oh, I don't know. Let's keep talking. I'm sure it'll come
No
back.
worries.
But
Absolutely. No.
I really do feel like that's important to become aware of. Is that what is it about us that we just always feel so like I want to stay in the dark. I don't want to talk about it, but it perpetuates that feeling.
Yes.
So
I,
then we stay in this loop. We stay in this cycle.
yeah. And something I would love to do is just like my own little personal side hustle is try to abolish shame the very best that I can.
Mm,
There are so many of these things that people put out there. They're just perfectly natural. There's something that so many of us, if not all of us, go through at some point in time or another. Get rid of it. Like literally, it's one of those things. Like if you don't talk about it, it's going to continue to get bigger. The anticipation is so much worse than the actual thing itself.
mhm,
Like the threat is just looming. But when you actually get to the heart of the matter, it really isn't that big a thing to talk about.
mhm.
Okay, so we're burping from different orifices. What the hell ever? Like it's really just not that big a deal. It's the human body. It's just performed this miraculous culmination of 9 months of labor intensive creation.
Ah, yes.
And now this is happening, and I'm not familiar. So if someone could please give me maybe a little bullet point tip sheet, that'd be great. Where's the problem in that? I think that's incredible. We
Yeah.
rely on our community to come across with things like that. And again, I don't know nothing about nothing on any of that. If I have a person that does in my life, you can bet that I'll pass it on because that's my
Mhm.
job. We're connected, and we need to continue to focus on that and rely on that.
Yeah. You made me think of it.
Oh, good.
It's that I guess when I think about being a teacher, if you really want to embody being a teacher, then you yourself have to light yourself on fire. Like what you're talking about, of like you have to be the first one to kind of burn yourself down, and be vulnerable, be real, and be raw. You have to take yourself there first to be that lighthouse and to set the example. And the interesting thing is that, like, when you do that for yourself, inherently it then gives everybody else permission to kind of do the same. Everybody else feels like, that laughter is almost like an icebreaker, and they're
Yes,
like, oh, if she's gonna go there and say that kind of embarrassing thing about herself, then it sort of levels the playing field, and it makes everybody else a lot more um brave and bold to do the same.
agree. Now, I'm curious if you feel this in your classes a lot of times as well. If you hold back a little, you can't get the full benefit of why you're there.
Mm,
Whenever you walk in the door, you've come to do your practice. You've come to enjoy this time with your community. You come to strengthen yourself to relieve the burdens of your mind and your spirit. And if you're holding on to these things, thinking that there are some things that I just simply cannot share, but you can't necessarily share the reason why.
mm,
I think as an instructor or someone who just wants to see people genuinely do better, it's like you said, it's our job to go ahead and be the first one to make the awkward step, to
Mhm.
make sure that they realize, give permission. I love that. I
Mhm.
give great audience for that specific reason. I laugh, I clap loudly, I am appreciative, because some people don't realize that it is okay to feel these full emotions and
Mhm.
express them in a full manner. And I think that whenever, exactly what you talked about, giving them permission by being the example, it makes all the difference in the world. It brings them to a level of fullness in their practice, in their goal seeking, that
Mhm.
they maybe couldn't do on their own. And I love that and respect and admire that in you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, it's definitely, I can hear my teachers coming through me. It's anything that I say, first and foremost, if there's anything that I've ever said that sounds really poetic or really brilliant, I've learned it from somebody else, and it's just truth. It's just
Mm,
wisdom. And all we can ever do is just keep like passing it on, keep sharing it, because I received it one day, and it's not real unless I also give it away. So there's that. But one thing that I feel like we need to say for your audience, because I don't know if a lot of people really practice yoga that listen to your podcast, but I find that when I tell people that I'm a yoga teacher, the first thing that people say, or more so confess, is, "Oh, MaKenzie, I am so not flexible." That's what they say. They like
sure.
immediately. It's like I haven't even finished the sentence, "I'm a yoga teacher," and they're like dipping out already. As if flexibility is some sort of prerequisite for having a yoga practice. And to me, I really feel like that's kind of in some ways saying, well, you need to be clean before you take a shower. And it's just kind of rewiring your relationship to it, to think that it's a practice that helps you become more flexible and more strong, but not just physically speaking. That's just one of the dimensions, right? We have these many bodies. We're physical beings, we're mental beings, we're emotional, we're spiritual, we're bliss, like all of these layers. We're like little Russian dolls that you crack open one, and then you've just got these deeper and deeper levels and layers of you. And the yoga practice, like a lot of people here in our Western world think that yoga is Lululemon, our cute little Lululemon outfit,
Yeah.
are the yoga postures themselves. And that's the biggest misconception of it. And it's only like a narrow view of what yoga can be and what yoga wants to be in your life. It is so vast and so deep. It's like an ocean, the study of yoga. And when you think of, like, I just want to make it a lot more universal for people, for your people that are listening to it. Instead of thinking like yoga is something that I do on a mat, that yoga is poses. Yoga has nothing to do with perfecting the poses. It has everything to do with perfecting the person doing the poses. A yoga
Nice.
practice is a practice that builds your character, that helps you look at yourself and the way you react to things. And it gives you this playground, this really safe space to practice. Okay, well, what if I simulate this experience of stress? And when I'm simulating that stress, I can start to see, like, oh, this is my habit. This is my pattern that I do whenever I start to feel pressure. This is the thing that I do when I start to feel uncomfortable, when I start to feel like I'm entering new territory. And it gives you this playground to try on different reactions. And when it comes from, like, when you come from a place of awareness, it moves from not actually being a reaction and it comes to being a response. And that's where,
Oh,
like, all the power lies in a yoga practice, is like, how do I be less reactive and a lot more responsive? Or another way to
oh,
say that is, how do I be more or less unconscious and more conscious?
excellent. Yes. Why, just the difference between react and respond.
Mhm.
That's brilliant. One is a knee jerk, and the other takes, like you say, consciousness,
Yeah,
forethought. This is my intention. Whenever this happens, I have trained myself to do this in reply.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
Well, good. And I mean, when you look at yoga from that perspective, it is more universal. Everybody can benefit from that. And it's a lot less judgmental. Like,
Truth.
in anybody can walk into a yoga room and walk that path or do the practice with that intention and get or have some sort of transformation, right? But when you walk in there and you think yoga is about like being the most perfect warrior one or just nailing your handstand or only thinking that it's this physical endeavor, number one, you're just scratching the surface. But also, number two, you're kind of missing the point.
Yeah. And
And
I'm guilty. I get caught up in that all the time. My tree pose, I'm just like, oh my God, I cannot wrap myself like this. Help. And it's
yeah,
never about that. It's about just trying to do better and be stronger, more flexible, all those kinds of things. And again, intention,
yeah.
breath.
Well, I don't mean to say it so like you're missing the point, but
Oh
it,
no.
it takes time to get there too, and it takes years just to be able to figure out like which is my right hand.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
to become more aware of your body, that takes, we're talking like years and years of practice.
Yeah.
So it takes time. I also don't want to discourage people who, like you're saying, you're like, I'm still just trying to figure out like what tree pose is, what to do with my limbs, and
And
oh
that's
God,
okay.
I'm sweating from the back of my knee pits. I didn't think that was
Oh my
possible.
God.
Like there's so
Right.
many things going on.
Well, and we said it earlier, and I like this as well. It's I want to be better at being wrong.
Hmm.
Like it's one of those things. A very good friend of mine says that a lot, and I love that. I want to be good at being wrong. I want to be teachable. I'm not perfect, but what I didn't show up to be perfect and show out. I showed up to improve, and I think that's so important in a practice like this. Now, another thing that you said earlier that kind of spurred me. It's so crazy to me to watch people whenever you say what it is that you do. Like say, I am in the business of, helping people find a way to enjoy their lives a little bit more. It's almost a knee-jerk reaction, like you were talking, a reaction for them to make an excuse why what it is you have to offer doesn't work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always so funny to me watch that happen. I was like, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything, just so we're clear. I said, I'm just telling you what I do. If you want to jump on board, rock and roll, there's plenty of room in the back. If you don't, that's cool too. You can just hang out here. 100% great. It just never ceases to amaze me how whenever you say something about like, well, I'm a yoga teacher. Oh my God. The first thing they want to do is try to come up with an excuse of why they don't do whatever it is you do. And it's like you're excluding yourself from this. I'm trying to bring you into the fold to tell you something about me, and you're trying to make it so well, I could never. It's like that wasn't where this was going, but okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I think people, that's a unconscious maybe habit, and I think it's people trying to relate. I don't think it comes from a place of militia or
Oh gosh, no.
that like they're just trying to relate and talk about maybe their experience or express their understanding of something. But that's what I'm saying is like the first thing that we need to clarify usually is like what yoga really is. And that's something that I feel like, unfortunately, when you go take a lot of yoga classes, like they're just teaching yoga postures, but they're
Yeah.
not actually like teaching yoga as like a practice, as a lifestyle. And that's really what has kind of inspired me to move more from just teaching public classes to people who are more like wellness seekers or people who just want to practice yoga for a hobby, maybe, to
Hmm.
then start speaking to yoga teachers who are not just in that passion place, but they want to take yoga teaching on as like their life's work, their life's pursuit. And I want to work with those teachers to help them teach classes that have that more heart of yoga. But it's a really hard thing to do. You have to just have you have to have a really deep understanding of what yoga is, because think about it too, like if somebody comes off the street and they want to take a yoga class, they're expecting to get some yoga postures, right? They don't
Sure.
want you to just like sit down and unload this lecture of like what is the meaning of life.
Right.
So you have to do both, like give them the asana, give them the yoga posture, but teach it to them in a way that's like, hey, I'm asking you to hold this lunge, but it's like we're just using this as a vehicle. The pose
Yes.
is just a vehicle to help us move towards something deeper. it's not actually about that. We're just using that to get to something else.
Agree. And that's what I've seen in every yoga class that I've taken. I think I've been very fortunate to have some wonderful yoga teachers. While you're posing, while you're getting into those and the corrections are happening and these sorts of things and the examples are being given, there's also the philosophy while the teacher sort of like roams between the students, making corrections and, making sure that everything is exactly the way that it should be. And I love that integration. I love the integration of the physical and the spiritual. I think it's so important. And I think a lot of people don't really realize exactly what's happening, like what you had mentioned. And I'll be honest, I don't think I realized what was happening until I got a little chance to sort of sit with it. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, gotcha. Now,
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say she's sneaky. Yoga is
She,
sneaky.
thank goodness, because I know that if you just asked me point blank, I would absolutely try to throw up a wall. If she sneaks it in there, I get the nourishment that I so desperately crave. And I don't get a chance to deny it or to decline it because it's already worked its way into my soul. And then
Yeah.
it's getting up in my business and it's making me a better, stronger person on several levels, which I love.
Yes. Do you know the movie Karate Kid?
Of course.
Of course.
What?
I
Yeah.
sometimes affectionately say that yoga is like Mr. Miyagi. It's like you're just doing paint the fence,
Paint the
wax
fence.
on, wax off. Like you don't realize you're just repeating the stuff. And you don't realize that it's like these foundational moves are setting you up for so much more success. In a lot of ways, like you don't actually even need to know the gravity, the depth, the weight of what you're learning at first. Because
Mm-mm.
if you don't have the capacity, you don't have the capacity to really grasp it. So it's like really good teachers, they're like, just don't even worry about that. Just do this and just do this and just do this
Exactly.
10,000 more times. Then we'll come back and we'll talk about, we'll talk about something deeper. So I always affectionately say like, you've been Miyagi, like
Yes.
it sneaks up on you. And that's the beautiful thing. Another one of my teachers, he puts it this way. It's like, you can go to the beach and you can be sitting on the beach looking at the water and still really like have a great experience. You're at the beach, you're enjoying the beach. You
Hmm.
can also like go into the shallow end and start to dip your toes in and feel the water, notice the wind, smell the salt, like all the things. That's still also being at the beach. Or you could be like out in the deep end, like catching some waves and surfings. All of it is still enjoying the beach. It's just different like variations of it. And
Hmm.
it takes a different type of student, or it takes a different type of personality. Um, that like each personality wants a different type of experience and is only ready for a certain type of experience as well. It takes skill to be out in the deep end, catching and surfing the waves.
Yes. Well, and I think that's a wonderful metaphor for the entire thing too, because if you try to get too deep too quickly, sometimes it can be a little overwhelming.
Hmm.
And so, I'm doing the thing because I was told to do the thing. I enjoy the thing. The thing is fun. This is good. Makes me feel great whenever I finish with the thing. And after we do it the 10,000 times, then we can start to understand why we've been doing the thing over and over again. We can start to introduce the rest of it, the idea behind it, the soul of it. And that is whenever the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, 100%. There's this really classic book amongst yogis. It's called Autobiography of a Yogi.
Uh-huh.
And the author, he talks about how, like, you have to prime your system. You have to do these practices to prime the system so that your system is actually ready for the intense, like, energy, what yogis would call prana, this like life force energy and current. Because you can plug into that, baby. But if you, it's like plugging your American plug into like a European outlet. If it's
Right.
not the right like connection, you're going to short circuit everything and you're going to fry the thing that you're trying to plug into then use. So it's like that's what the asana practice, the pose practice kind of does, is it primes your system. It gets your body ready, more of a fit vehicle to house and hold some of this more energy.
Brilliant. Now,
Isn't that
now,
great?
these ideas, everything that we've been talking about today, are these the kind of things that you do in your retreats whenever we're talking about Rechaka and things like that? Like,
Yeah.
this is just a taster, as far as I know, of will happen whenever you go off on these magical retreats to these incredible destinations to learn more about this for your own enrichment, to become a better teacher, to become a teacher in the first place. Like,
Yeah.
what sort of what I guess what's an expectation that one can expect out of going on one of these retreats, or multiples by that
Yeah,
matter?
well, great question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
The Rechaka Retreats really was born out of my business partner and I. We both have a tremendous love for books. I am a bookworm, like you said in the introduction. I really love to read. I'm that girl who has like the Bible, the Bhagavad Gitas, the Yoga Sutras, like all of these texts that are very revered among all sorts of religions. They're on my bedside, by my head. I'm reading them every day. So I really love to read. And my business partner, who now is the co-owner of Rechaka Retreats, we started actually in a book club. And we thought, man, people are going to want to come over and like have these deep discussions like we are. And it kind of worked out, but we sort of showed our nerd, our geek kind of fell out of the purse a little bit. So we were like, maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and rework this a little bit. And we thought that maybe some of this deep talk or sort of like lecture, like it's yoga, but it's more like you said, the philosophy and the talking about it. It's for the more people who like information and education than just a physical practice. But we thought, hey, maybe we could go somewhere really cool. That way we also get to travel. But
Right?
then we could infuse some of these like these more sort of sharing circles or like a lecture, a discourse kind of on yoga philosophy, as well as offer physical practice of yoga in the morning, whether it's like a vinyasa style practice, a really strong physical practice, or a yin yoga style that's more passive, more restorative and calming. And so we could kind of hit you from all angles of like getting that physical body really worked, getting that mental body kind of turned on with some of these discourses and lecture on yoga philosophy, getting your energy and your heart by going to different places. Changing your environment is so important if you really want to see tremendous change happen really quickly. It's all about your environment, as well as like being in the same like field of people who are in the pursuit of the same thing that you are, and creating a real healthy community and ecosystem of people who are inwardly searching and just trying to come back to some sense of peace and balance. So that was our aim behind Rechaka, is like creating this really well balanced healing experience through retreats.
Wonderful.
And yeah, and that it hopefully it can create a lot of transformation in a short amount of time. And that's the beauty of retreats, is that they can last, between 3 days and a week, but you can have like months of growth happen in that time because you are retreating, you're withdrawing from the world with the intent to, after the retreat, then advance back into the world.
Yep.
So it's not just the retreating, it's like going away to figure some things out so that then you can like charge back into your life with this renewed sense of energy, this renewed sense of clarity and purpose.
Absolutely. Oh, I love this. This and two, like I want to make sure that everyone here listening, the destinations are amazing. You went to Bali,
Yeah.
and I was just like, oh, inside out with jealousy. I was so
Mhm.
envious. I got to go shortly after, and I was like, oh, incredible
Yeah,
place. Oh my God. And I
truly.
know that Mexico's coming up as well. Yes.
Yes, we are actually headed to Tulum in April, and we are staying at the
Nice.
most luxurious. It's like eco chic boho. I need to go shopping to like fit in at this place. I'm gonna get me some
Get you
cute
a big
outfit.
hat. There you
Yeah,
go.
exactly. But it is right on the beach. We're talking like white sands. You could like touch the crystal blue water. We are right smack dab on the beach, baby. It's going to be so amazing. And the like, of course, Mayan culture is an experience that I'm really excited to taste. Specifically, we have what is it? A sweat lodge experience that we're going to do there. That is
Nice.
supposed to be absolutely change your life. I've looked up a few benefits as far as sweat lodges, and I'm like, I am
Yeah,
here for it. Number one, I
absolutely.
mean, the yoga practice also does this, right? It makes you sweat
Hmm.
because you're moving and breathing, you're increasing your body's temperature. Something about heat and sweat to me, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this too. Doesn't it feel like sweat is like the body's version of tears?
Oh, absolutely.
The body's
100%.
version of like crying?
Hmm.
Yeah. So the yoga practice and like a sweat lodge experience, I just hope that it creates this safe space for people to really feel like they finally allow themselves to feel.
Yeah. And your body tears can eventually lead to your eyeball tears, which I
Mhm.
think is like, it's almost like a body high versus just getting straight to the point. It's one of those things where you just feel it all over, and that's wonderful, but it's been sort of like sprayed, and you
Yeah.
want to sort of focus that beam of emotion. And so with your body tears, it sort of gives the rest of you permission to sort of like let the really intense emotions free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love that idea. Yeah.
It- It's not uncommon for people to have an emotional release in a yoga practice.
Yeah.
And it's because the body, there's this phrase that kind of circulates in the yoga world is that the issues are in your tissues. And the
Okay.
body buries your emotions in your actual tissues. So when you start to move your body, and these movements are, they're expanding and then they're contracting, you're
Mhm.
twisting and then you're opening. So it's kind of like a baker working with this dough. It's like stretching you and squeezing you. And so it's just working out all of these emotions that got pushed down. So these deep seated feelings, the second you tap into how you're feeling, it's like putting a, I don't know, like a water on a kettle, right?
Yeah.
It just starts to boil, it starts to boil, it starts to boil, then all of a sudden that kettle is gonna, I can't whistle. Can you whistle? I can't do it.
I'm sucking in because I don't want to blow on the microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, but you get the point. Like it
Yeah.
starts to bubble and boil, and then all of a sudden it starts to whistle, and your
Yeah.
body is kind of the same way. It's like you start to sweat, but then all of a sudden it's like this inner voice that starts to whistle and sing, and like all this stuff comes up that you really forgot about, and that just kind of takes you by surprise. But it feels really good. It's cathartic. It's like crying.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I loved your metaphor about the dough as well, because in my mind, for whatever reason, I was thinking about like sometimes if you leave certain kinds of dough on the counter, they will develop sort of like a little bit of a shell. Just
Mm,
just a just a very thin like layer over the top, just to sort of like it. I think it's actually just the bacteria or the yeast or whatever that are trying to protect themselves from the air and
mm.
something like that. And whenever you start to knead it, whenever you start to pull it, it that cracks and it folds back into the dough itself. And
Ah,
when you
that's
said
great.
the issues are in the tissues, I'm like, once I start to really flex and stretch those muscles again, everything that had been calcified
Mhm.
emotionally in my muscles and tissues
Yes.
start to break up. And
Mhm.
there is a certain amount of emotion that is released in that. And sometimes it's just too much to keep in the batter. Sometimes it squeezes out your eyeballs, and there we go.
That was
This
so
happens to me
beautifully
frequently.
put. Yes, that
Oh,
was so well put. I love like the idea of this calcification because I think that's what happens to us. Like our bodies are so underused for most
yes.
people. Like 90% of people, our bodies are underused, but at the same time, our minds are really under or overused. So the bodies are
Mind?
underused, the minds are overused, and we feel exhausted because the
Yes.
mind is constantly thinking. But the body, if it sits still too long, it starts to calcify, it starts to harden. And that's counter to how we're meant to be. Every healthy body wants and craves to move. And
Yes.
interestingly, the more you kind of work the body, the more energy you have. So you have to move the body to get energy, but you have to still the mind to get energy. So
Yep.
it's like this. There I go again, trying to whistle and I can't whistle.
But that one was great. That was a great whistle.
Thank you. But it comes back into equilibrium and balance, and that's kind of the like real seed of wisdom behind all of this is that yoga is all about balancing or uniting your opposites. So it's
Yes.
like while the body needs this movement, you need movement in your life, but you also need stillness in your life. And it's learning how to play with your opposites and use them intelligently so you have that sense of integration. And there's not a sense of denying a single part of yourself, right? Because I feel like you and I can relate on this. Like we have this connotation that like slow is bad, being still is bad, and it's like
Yeah.
no, there's a time and a place for all of these energies. It's just getting better at knowing when to push and when to pull back. It takes
Yes.
skill, it takes practice.
And like you were saying earlier, it takes intention. You have to be watching for it. So many times we just let ourselves go on cruise control, like, well, I don't have time to go to the gym today because I don't have time for my yoga practice today because, but I still have to get all of my work done, meaning that we have more and more unrest in our noggins and way too much rest in our bodies.
Mhm.
And no matter how stimulated, no matter how intelligent, no matter how creative we are, all that resides in the head and the heart. It's all toted around by the body. And if you neglect that, you're not using your entire self to the utmost.
Yeah.
It never fails to just blow my mind that there are people out there that are so incredibly creative. They're so incredibly intelligent. They're so hardworking, and they have this ambition and this drive, and they just sit there chewing Tostitos all day. I was like, not that there's anything wrong with Tostito. God knows I love them, and they don't move. I need you to move. I need you to get going and like use this gorgeous temple that you have been blessed to inhabit and
Mhm.
move it. Stretch it,
Amen.
strengthen
Yes.
it, these kinds of things, right? Because without that balance, I mean, you think about something on a fulcrum. You know, you say you've got like a ruler balanced on your finger. And if one side gets a little bit too long or whatever, the whole thing's going to fall off. You've
Mhm.
upset the whole system. If you get a balance, if you pay attention to both your intellectual and your spiritual and your physical
Mhm.
in enough parts to keep everything going at optimal levels, I think that's where the secret lies. And it's not even a secret. We all know it. We just try to make excuses for it and say that it doesn't apply. It's like, no,
Well,
no,
balance, I mean, it's such a noble endeavor because we're always falling in and out of it. It's not something
yes,
that you like you're there and then you stay there. It's like you cross over it and then you have to recalibrate. So it's this constant dance and play of like finding it and losing it, finding it and losing it. And back to that idea, we touched on this a little bit in the beginning of like if you're not careful, if you don't have a practice like yoga, you'll end up hurting yourself. The best way that I've heard it kind of ever described is someone described it like a yoga practice is here to help you be better at using your faculties, to help you be a better user of your tools. So think
I
about
love
like the tool of a knife, right? A knife is
that.
meant to be sharp. A knife is helpful and useful when it's sharp. So there's this story of three people in a tent. There's
I'm
there's
here for it.
there's an observer who's kind of like watching this scene. There's a man and a woman, and the man is cutting an apple. And he's cutting away at his apple using a knife. And the woman says to the man, "Okay, be very careful. It's a really sharp knife." And the guy is like, "Okay." And he goes back to cutting his apple. The observer is thinking in his mind, he's like, "Well, of course, it's a knife. It's meant to be sharp. That's the tool's design." This is also a grown man. He knows how to use and wield the knife so that he doesn't cut himself. So this happens a couple more times. The woman is like warning the man, "Please be careful. It's a very sharp knife." And finally, like the observer is like, "Leave him alone. He can do this. He can handle it. It's a knife. It's meant to be sharp, but he can handle the tool." And so then she says it one more time, and lo and behold, the guy ends up like cutting himself. But the point being is that the answer, the solution is not to dull the blade. It's to become a better wielder of the tool. And
There it is.
the same is like true for us. We have this very sharp tool, which is your mind. Your mind is this incredible faculty. But if we're not careful, this mind in this story, in this imagery, this knife is very sharp. And if we're not a good user, we will end up cutting ourselves, we'll end up hurting ourselves because we're not good users. So please don't blunt the blade. Don't numb our feelings with drugs, with alcohol, with shopping, whatever it is that's like your vice. You don't need to blunt the blade. We just got to get better at using what we have. And when you think of it that way, I think it makes it again a lot more universal. And again, like everybody can really benefit from something like that.
I agree. And I love that you made such a wide spectrum of those too. It's not just about folks who drink too much or drug use or those kind of things. It's about shopping. It's about eating. It's about literally any of these things that we use instead of looking and doing the work for the self-improvement to make
Mhm.
sure that, again, like you said, your faculties are sharp. Don't dull the faculty. Be a better wielder. I want that on a shirt.
Wield. Ugh, you got to
I
say
want
it from
to.
your like,
You
yeah.
have to. That comes from a diaphragmatic, like way deep down. I don't want to say, you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
man.
but this is also tough. I mean, it's a lot easier in some regards. It's easier to keep going back to our vices because we're used to it, and
Yes,
we aren't sometimes accustomed to the intensity of emotions. And sometimes, man, like emotions can be so strong, right? Like there's some real emotions out there. I've got this emotions wheel. Then I study
nice.
it every day. Like, oh God, like emotions are so complex. And a lot of times it's not just I'm feeling this one way. It's like I'm feeling a majority of this with also a side dish of this and a little like flavor of this. And so it's complex and it takes a real sharp mind. It takes discernment to be able to distinguish like all the things that we're feeling and be aware of those feelings as we're feeling it. Pff, forget about it. Like I think
Agreed.
there's some study that's like 80% of the time, 90% of the time we're completely unaware of like how we're feeling as we're feeling it. And imagine how much better of a user you would be of your software, of your faculty, of your tools if you like were aware of how you felt.
Yes. And we're always talking about that here too. Check in with yourself. Check it like why do I feel like this? What is this feeling? If you're feeling only one emotion, I'm going to need you to dig just a little bit deeper, friends, because
Mm,
very rarely do they show up without their posse. Okay. So I think the fact that, we're talking about a blend and a flavor and a side dish of this. Yes, exactly. Where's the majority? How do we deal with that? What is it in us that is giving that reaction? And how can we respond? I'm going to use that react respond thing a million times from here on out, just so we're clear.
I'm so
I
glad.
love that so much. That is so effective in thinking about something like that. One is how you were raised.
Mhm.
Basically, this is my gut feeling. This is my knee jerk, and the other is a practice. It is something that I have honed. I know about myself that I want to make different or better, if you want to call it that. And I'm going to be conscious of my response to this when it comes around again because I know it will.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Good.
Oh
I'm
my
so glad.
gosh.
Are
Yeah.
you ready for one more little golden nugget?
Please. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So I heard this somewhere. I can't remember where, but it's so good. And it's in the same vein of what we were just talking about. And to really like hopefully drive it home and make it serve your audience when it comes to talking about radical joy is that think about the word responsible. In that word, there's kind of two words really. Ability to respond. You have this responsibility, you have an ability to respond with radical joy always. That's
Oh,
your birthright. That's your inheritance. It's just, it's these emotions that are covering up that clarity. It's like you're looking at the world through emotion tinted glasses. And so, what the practice can help you do is like become aware that you're wearing these tinted glasses and maybe your vision is being skewed because of these emotions. And that if you can, number one, wake up, that's a moment of enlightenment, be like, whoa, maybe this isn't actually what's happening. It's just how I'm perceiving it, how I'm seeing it. And in that moment of breath, in that moment of insight, you can maybe like take off your glasses and start to see the world from the vantage point of radical joy, which is what we already are, what we've always been. We're always joyful. We're always peaceful. We're always happy. We're always abundant. It's just that lie of the mind that we started the whole conversation with. We believe these lies that we're alone. We
Yeah.
believe these lies that things are stressful, and that perpetuates more thoughts of the
Agree.
same nature. And then we're just so covered and clouded.
It's wonderful. I love it. I'm still kind of marveling over here at it. I was like, yeah, the ability to gorgeous.
Oh,
And
well,
that
again,
awareness.
all of these things I have heard from somebody else. Like,
Okay.
please don't mistake the channeler for the truth. And I always try to say that as like, I remember hearing these things for the first time too, and having like a real moment of, that's good. But I can't take credit for any of this. It's just truth. And notice
Okay.
when you hear truthful things, they feel like a truth bomb in your body, or like something's being unlocked. That's a real sign that it's just truth. It's not a person. And like, often don't idolize or put the person on the pedestal. Like, just listen for the truth always.
Heard. And that's the thing. I love you. I have always loved you and admired you as a performer, as a person, as a partner, as a mother now. So many things that I could put you on a pedestal for. But I don't, because I know at the end of the day you're still that lady who talks about queefing on Instagram. It's important. Do I admire you? God, yes, of course. You carry so much. The things that you continue to accomplish, I marvel. Okay, just so we're clear. What I can do instead of putting you on a pedestal as the one is the originator, I can revere the messenger who
Mm.
brought it to my attention. Is that okay? Can I do that for you at least? Because I want to make sure it's like, hey, gratitude must be paid. And if I don't know the origin, I can definitely, toss a gold coin to the messenger who brought it.
Oh, well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Yeah,
Of
thank you.
course. Oh my gosh. Wow. Now here's the best part. I love getting a chance to talk to you always, but I think that one of my favorite parts of getting you on the show today was to make sure that folks know that CLW Studios has a brand new podcast on your way.
It's
And
so
I'm
exciting.
very excited about it. It's called Master Your Yoga Teaching, correct?
Yep, that's right.
And the host is none other than
Da, da, da,
MaKenzie Fly.
da.
Yes, exactly. This amazing lady right here. So, not only do I love what she brings to us here at the channel, what I love is the fact that she's going to have her entire platform to do more of this with other yoga professionals, as well as other people who are very specifically focused on bringing you to your highest, best self. And that is very exciting. She is doing the kind of work that we have always wanted to do right here. And it's going to be found right here as well every Wednesday, just like Radical Joy. So you're going to have a plethora of amazing on Hum Day to enjoy from CLW Studios.
Ain't that the truth? It is so exciting. And I really, really appreciate you giving me some time here to connect with your people. And if anybody who's listening resonated with anything that we've talked about together, I would love to see you over there. It is more for yoga teachers, but it is also might be of interest to people who are just starting to explore the world of yoga. Maybe you're wanting to become more of a yoga practitioner. So I hope to connect with you over there as well.
Absolutely. And we're going to make sure we include all of these good things about MaKenzie and the podcast and Rechaka and all of it in this show notes. So if you'd like to know more about any and all of that, we're going to give you a cornucopia, an abundance of information so you know exactly where to find it, because we want to make this as simple as possible for any and all of you that have interest in doing that. And I would highly recommend it. It is nourishing to me to get to spend time with you, MaKenzie. So I'm hoping that everybody else has the same experience. And if they give it a chance, I'm certain they will.
Oh, thank you so much, James. I value our friendship, and I'm just so grateful. I can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Absolutely sweet. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Radical Joy today. If this is your first episode, weren't you in for a treat? Because this was absolutely amazing. I loved having MaKenzie on today. If this is not your first episode, thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you for finding value in this so that you wanted to come and spend a little bit more time with us here at Radical Joy. It's always so wonderful to have you. As always, if you're a review type person, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Take a screenshot of it. Make sure you send it to us so that way we can send you a sticker, because we appreciate that. Your word of mouth and making sure that you share, like, review, those kinds of things, downloads, all tremendously helpful to all of us podcasters out here trying to get our message across. As always, thank you so much for joining us here at Radical Joy. We love y'all. The bottom line is, use your words, friends. Thank you for joining us again in this moment of radical joy. If this is your first time, we're so happy you're here. Take a moment to check out our archive, see if there's something else that fires you up, rekindles the joy in you. And hey, spread the word if you enjoyed it. We welcome reviews and messages. Let me know what you want to talk about. I rarely run out of things to say. So if there's something on your mind or heart, I want to hear from you. Don't forget, there is no shame in joy. I am not a therapist or a medical professional. If you're experiencing a mental health emergency, please call 911. This content and other content produced by CLW Studios and affiliated partners is not therapy, and nothing in this content indicates a therapeutic relationship. Any opinions of guests on this podcast are their own and do not represent the opinions of James or CLW Studios. Please consult with your therapist or seek one in your area if you're experiencing mental health symptoms. Anything in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Learn more about James and CLW Studios. Follow the link in the show notes. Don't forget to leave a review, and hey, we'll send you a sticker. Just send a screenshot and let us know where you want it sent. Have a great week, and we will see you next Wednesday for another dose of radical joy. Love y'all.